So it appears Nintendo has just come to an agreement with the Ryujinx team to shut down Ryujinx. So Ryujinx will no longer be no more. As most of you probably know, Ryujinx was the only real Switch emulator left after Nintendo had Yuzu shut down. There are other emulators, things that are basically forks of Yuzu or Ryujinx. So, Nintendo Switch emulation will live on in some way, but I do want to talk about sort of the ramifications of Ryujinx shutting down and how we got here. What are the steps forward at this point? So first of all, with regard to Ryujinx, this message was posted in their Discord by one of the moderators. It says, yesterday, GDK Chan was contacted by Nintendo and offered an agreement to stop working on the project, remove the organization and all related assets he's in control of. While awaiting confirmation on whether he would take the agreement, the organization has been removed. So I think it's safe to say what the outcome is. Rather than leave you with only panic and speculation, I decided to write this short message to give some closure. These words are my own. I don't want to speak for anyone else here, so just remember that while reading. And then he says, thank you to everyone who has contributed code, documentation, or issue reports to the project. Thank you all for following us throughout development. I was able to learn a lot of really neat things about the games that I love, enjoy them with renewed qualities, and I'm sure that you all have experiences that are similarly special. I'm extending my own massive thanks to our moderation team who have been there through some rough circumstances and always found a way to make light of it, end quote. So yeah, that's a heartfelt message from one of the mods and developers over there at the Ryujinx team. But it does seem like GDK Chan, the main contributor to Ryujinx, has basically accepted some sort of offer from Nintendo to stop working on the project. Now, who knows how much that offer is or what that offer is, whether it's monetary or something else, but it appears that he and Nintendo have come to an agreement to essentially shut down Ryujinx. Yeah, notably, GDK Chan was based out of Brazil, and that was sort of flexed a few times, at least on the part of the community, I believe, to sort of show that, yeah, GDK Chan and therefore Ryujinx can't really be shut down because they're in Brazil and they're sort of safe from Nintendo's legal team. And I guess Nintendo agreed and they were safe from Nintendo's legal team. So instead of going through the legal channels, Nintendo has made some sort of agreement with GDK Chan. So I don't know, I'm a little bit speechless about this turn of events. It is disheartening to have just one less emulator, right? We had two main emulators and they both served their own purpose, with Yuzu sort of going for more playability, let's say, and Ryujinx aiming for more accuracy. And so they both served their own purpose. So even just us losing Yuzu, that was a big hit to the community because Yuzu focused a lot on playability, as I said. And now losing Ryujinx, it essentially feels like we've lost all Nintendo Switch emulation. Now, again, Nintendo Switch emulation lives on in forks and things like that. And we are also at the tail end of the Nintendo Switch life cycle. So, we've accomplished, I think, 80 to 90% of what we would have wanted to accomplish as a community. But it does say a lot that these two, not just these two entities, Ryujinx and Yuzu, are gone, but also their main contributors, right? Like GDK Chan is agreeing to not work on this anymore. The main contributor to Yuzu is, he's been faced with legal ramifications. So he's not going to be working on any other Nintendo Switch emulators or anything like that. So it's not just those entities, it's a lot of the developers within those entities. So I think from the perspective of Nintendo, what they must be aiming for at this point, right, is protecting their follow-up, the Nintendo Switch 2. Because if you think about it, Nintendo Switch, like I said, it's on the tail end of its life cycle. Nintendo taking this sort of action now, so late in their life cycle, indicates that they understood that there wasn't much they could do about the Nintendo Switch and the state that it's in. But there is a lot that they can do to prevent Nintendo Switch 2 from being emulated. At least that's how I'm seeing it at this point. So they can at least slow that down in the coming months, in the coming years, and put some space between them and the hobbyists and developers that are going to be working on building emulators for the Switch 2. Undoubtedly, there will still be people to do that. But, Nintendo has made it clear that they will take action as best that they can, right? Whether that's legal action or whether that's in agreement, whatever that sort of agreement may be. I wonder, for a lot of people out there, I wonder what's the amount, if it is a monetary agreement, what is the amount that would, if you were working on a Switch or Switch 2 emulator, is there a number where you would be like, yeah, I'll take that money and I'll stop doing it? Is it $1 million, $10 million, $100,000? What is that amount that Nintendo would have to offer you to be like, yeah, I'm good. I'll take your money and run. No big deal. I think this all points to basically the Switch 2 and Nintendo trying to protect their best interests with the Switch 2. This kind of comes alongside Russ from Retro Game Core getting his second copyright strike from Nintendo as well. So clearly, Nintendo, their legal teams, their business teams, all of their teams are very active right now and trying to protect I guess you could say, the future of Nintendo Switch 2. It's also relatively known at this point, that Nintendo Switch 2 does look to be backwards compatible. There have been several leaks of the specifications, as well as a potential leak of the interior of the Switch 2. That leak for that printed circuit board, that PCB, looks a little too real to be fake, and it's bespoke, right? It's not a sort of PCB that you'll be able to find anywhere else. So if it's a fake, someone went through the trouble of making it look incredibly real, just missing sort of the memory, the CPU, things like that. So if those leaks are to believe, the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible with the Switch 1 and Switch 1 cartridges. And that just goes further to the point that Nintendo doesn't want the Switch 1 be a vulnerability for the Switch 2. I have on many times criticized Nintendo on this channel, and I will continue to do so. But one thing I can understand at this point is that I want backwards compatibility with Switch games. Me, as a consumer of Nintendo products, I would like backwards compatibility from Nintendo Switch to Nintendo Switch 1, from Nintendo Switch 2 to Nintendo Switch 1. I think that's a selling point for the Nintendo Switch 2. And if Nintendo agrees and they think that's a selling point for the Switch 2, then I can see why they would want to prevent the Nintendo Switch cartridges, Nintendo Switch 1 cartridges, to being an attack vector for the Switch 2. I can't imagine that that's what they want, and I can understand it from that point of view. Furthermore, I'll say the fact that they couldn't get at GDK-chan legally is a win for the community, is a win for GDK-chan. Hopefully the agreement, is in GDK-chan's favor. Hopefully it's something that they're happy with. This is someone that, just by virtue of working on Ryujinx and doing what they did with Ryujinx, they've had a lot of impact on that community. So it's pretty incredible to have that impact on the community and maybe walk away with a payday, or maybe walk away with something that works out best for everybody. This is something where, in the modding scene, it happens a lot where instead of fighting the modder, sometimes you hire the modder, right? So in Counter-Strike was famously started as a mod for Half-Life that just was developed independently. But clearly that developer was hired by Valve and worked on Counter-Strike internally. And then there are level designers that got their start by modding open first-person shooters or creating Kaizo levels in Mario, right? I actually enjoy seeing when someone gets one of those sort of agreements where they get hired or they get an opportunity by way of their work in the community. So hopefully that's something that works out for GDK-chan. That's my main thing there. As far as the future of Nintendo Switch emulation, again, a lot of people have forks to these two emulators. You can find mirrors of these two emulators in their current state. In many ways, these two emulators were already 80 to 90% of the way there. There are going to be firmware updates that may break compatibility. So, it's possible that there are games that are going to be released in the next 6 to 12 months that are not going to be compatible with whatever you have left of Yuzu or Ryujinx. And maybe some of those forks will take care of that. Maybe some of the community will find ways to address that. But I'll be honest, at this point, I'm not going to try to get updated versions of Switch emulators. I'm going to stick to what I have, and whatever is compatible is compatible. Again, there's only 6 to 12 months left of Nintendo Switch games. And I know a lot of people at this point have written off Nintendo, rightfully so. But if you're someone that's going to go out and buy a Nintendo Switch 2, then at this point, you're probably just looking forward to the Nintendo Switch 2. And, that will also bring with it a new wave of hackers, right? Whether it's in Brazil or elsewhere, there are certainly going to be hackers. Every new wave of hardware actually invigorates hackers. And so we're going to see those people that are really interested in tinkering and building up the next emulator. They're going to be around, and maybe this time they'll be a little more secretive. You'll have to find the holes in the wall that lead you to sort of the speakeasies where you can get these Switch 2 emulators one day. Maybe that's what it is. But certainly people will be working on breaking open the Switch 2 and figuring out how to build emulators for it. That's inevitable, right? So at this point, I would just consider this a bit of a lull. Nintendo Switch emulation, for all intents and purposes, has ceased for the time being. Again, I know that there are still people with mirrors, forks, all sorts of things, and people still working on it. But from a mainstream perspective, I would consider Switch emulation ceased for the time being. And we'll see with Switch 2, I think that there's going to be a reinvigoration in the scene, and we'll see how long it takes to crack. We'll see how long it takes to emulate. Certainly Nintendo's going to be on their P's and Q's when it comes to addressing those things. But nonetheless, I'll stay tuned to whatever's happening. I'll try my best to report it to you all without getting struck by Nintendo, either copyright or otherwise. Hopefully they don't take this video down. We'll see. But yeah, let me know what amount of money you would accept in order to stop developing Nintendo Switch emulators. If you were a Nintendo Switch emulator developer, would it be 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million? Give me the number in the comments below. All right, that gang out. Goodbye.